Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Spreck and Disc Golf, the most reliable Pro Tour focused podcast. I'm your host, Zachary Coleman, and we have a great show on hand for you. We are going to be recapping Waco and then hitting you guys with some power rankings. If you haven't already, go check out our social media stuff. We have Twitter and Instagram, as well as our home platform, SpreckandSports.com. More about that later in the episode. So, jumping right into Waco. I know during the preview show, I went on this huge tangent about how Waco needs to be off the Pro Tour. And that is a tough stance to take after the weekend we had. It was an incredible tournament. It felt like there were 1,000 people in contention until the final few holes. And I really, if I could watch, 100 more tournaments like Waco, I would. So I might have to reconsider my stance on that because Waco heard what I said and then turned around and spat in my face because that was fantastic. So I'm glad it was a great event. I would rather watch a great event than a boring event. So let's just get right into it. We had Kyle Klein and Kristen Tatar taking it down in slightly different fashion. So just kind of recapping the event on the MPO side. MPO, it felt like I mentioned, it felt like there were 100 people in it. We had different people leading at different times. We had guys like Sexton, James, Heimburg, all leading at one point. But eventually it was Mr. Kyle Klein who took it down, shooting 31 under par. I had predicted 27 under par would take it. It ended up being less windy than I expected. So 31 down took it. And Kyle Klein won from chase card, which was not surprising based on how the tournament was going. There were so many people in it from so many different cards that if someone won from third card, it wouldn't actually have shocked me. He was making a charge last round. He ended up shooting a bogey-free 13 down, and he birdied 16, 17, and 18 to secure the win over Adam Hammes and Calvin Heimburg. If you look at his previous rounds, he shot really, really solid, but he wasn't like jumping up the leaderboards like he did in that final round. Round one, he shot 9 down, which was very solid in contention, 3 back of the lead. Round two, he shot another 9 down, and then he put up a crazy 13 down. So congrats to Kyle Klein. Really did a great job. I have some stats here of kind of what he did well, but overall he only bogeyed 2 holes all weekend, 2 bogey strokes, and that is incredible. He was 90% from C1X, which is perfectly good enough to get you the win. That ended up being 4th in the tournament, and he had an incredible scramble rate at 83%, which was good enough for 3rd overall. He, like I said, that bogey-free 13 down final round, 100% C1X putting that final round, and he was able to really set the pace. I think something that helped him was he was ahead of lead card by 1 hole, and they could often see what he was doing because they were kind of stacked up for a bit toward the end. And he set the pace. I mean, he was level with them through the same amount of holes at one point, and he just said, I'm going to go birdie these next few and, catch me if you can, and they could not. So great win for Kyle Klein. This is his 2nd Elite Series win, his first one being Idlewild 2 years ago, and he's back to winning ways. We will see if that's the last win he gets this year. Maybe it's one of many. I'm excited, but he's a super talented, super smooth player, and when his putting is on, I feel like he can really beat anybody. So congrats to Kyle Klein. Next up, we got Adam Hammes at 29 down, 2 strokes back of Kyle Klein. He was pretty solid in fairway hits and circle 2 in regulation, as well as circle 2 putting this weekend. And he had an ace in the final round, which really jump-started his round. He was started a little bit flat. He aced hole 8 in round 3, and that really kicked him into high gear, but it was apparently too late. The thing about Adam Hammes, and I might get a little bit of hate for this, but when Adam is birdieing and doing well, it does not look easy. Like Calvin and Paul and Rick and Eagle all made it, and Kyle this weekend, they make it look really easy when they're on, in blackout mode or on a great tear. And Adam just doesn't do that, or at least didn't this weekend. He was giving himself long, awkward putts. He just, he was hitting fairways, but he was having to do a little bit too much, and eventually he came up short, put himself in too many bad situations. It wasn't effortless like it looks for the other guys. It looks very labored. So I don't know. That's not super, material criticism, but just from the kind of eye test, that's kind of what I saw. But overall, a good weekend for Adam. He had a really rough season last year, so hopefully he can bounce back and we can see the best of Adam Hammes again. In third, we had a tie between Calvin Heimburg and Cole Redolin. So starting with Calvin, he was doing his thing. He was looking really smooth and solid. First in parked percentage, third in C1 in regulation, first in C2 in regulation. He just lost strokes to Kyle Klein putting and scrambling. And Calvin had a couple holes where he took big numbers and Kyle didn't. That's all it really was. Calvin's game, like I was talking about Adam looking difficult, Calvin's game was looking really effortless. He was striping the fairway as always. He was putting it close enough to make his putts pretty simple. And he was just like, it was easy looking for him to do that. So Calvin is someone to look out for this year especially. But overall, Calvin had mentioned that he's not comfortable on this course. So a third place for him, I think he will take that every day. I think if you said, hey, you get third at Waco every year, he would absolutely take that. So he did a great job keeping it smooth and simple. And his forehand has been looking really, really solid this year. It's not something we traditionally see him excel at necessarily. But he birdied hole 17 twice. He had 3 birdie putts on it. It's looking powerful and just really smooth. The other thing he looked really good at that he usually is not fantastic at is those kind of mid-range up shots. A lot of the times we see him make some mistakes on those, or just those touch little lines, and he was excellent on hitting those really kind of precise lines with lower speed discs. So obviously he does that really well. He is a top, right now I think he's a top player in the world, if not number one. Then he's in the top 3 right now, and so obviously he's going to be better than average, but that wasn't the strongest part of his game by any means. And he's looked really good. He was throwing putters well, he's throwing mids well, doing something I don't necessarily expect him to beat the field at a ton. So good for Calvin, good job. Speaking of good for him, good for Cole Redolin, a young kid out of Oregon, extremely smooth, extremely talented, and he lit it up this weekend. A third place, really could have won it. He was pushing for the win at quite a few points. He was 67% C1 in regulation. That was first overall. 85% fairway hits for 4th best, and then 67% birdie percentage, tied for first. It was just too many bogeys that really bit him. He couldn't seem to, he was first, not tied for first. He was first in birdie percentage. But there's just too many bogeys. So if you go look at his rounds, final round, he only had 1 par, and he shot 9 down. That was round 1. He shot 10 down, 14 birdies, 1 bogey, or 2 bogeys, 1 double, and a par. But when I look at Cole, I see all the talent in the world, and I really think he, can continue to excel and be that top player that I think we all know he can be. So good job to Cole. He actually shot really consistent golf. He shot 54, 54, 53. So good to see him just putting in those consistent rounds. Moving over to the FPO side, a little bit of a different story. So I'll get into the storylines and kind of recapping the event in a second here. Actually, no, I'll just do that now. So Kristen Tarr and Ella Hansen were really the ones fighting for the win here, all the way back to round 1. After round 1 on FPO, Kristen shot a 9 down, Ella shot a 7 down, couple others at 5, but really it looked like those two were going to be the ones fighting for the win. Round 2, Kristen really struggled. She had a bogey and 2 triple bogeys, quite a few birdies, but eventually it was an even round, and Ella took advantage, shooting 3 down to move to just within 1 stroke. To actually take the lead. My apologies. UDisc was showing me weird stuff. To actually take the lead. And then round 3 came. Ella looks like she would be untouchable. She started 4 down through 4. Kristen was even through 4. Ella was cruising. And then Kristen, she turned it on. She did what she does. She rattled off 5 in a row and really pushed herself back into it. Took a costly double bogey on 13. It looked like it was going to be the end of the tournament. And then Ella made some interesting decision making. So starting on 16 is a hole that it's not actually as easy for the FPO field as I kind of expected it would be, but it played with 96% fairways hit. You cannot go OB on this hole. You can go OB, but you just, for the sake of your tournament, you cannot. And that is what Ella did. She was leading by 4 strokes, 3 holes to go. She goes out of bounds, is not able to get up and down for the par. Kristen takes 2 strokes with a birdie. Moving on to 17. Ella throws a good drive. Kristen throws a good drive. Ella just has to throw a second shot safely in bounds on the narrow strip. She needs to hit it flat, trust it out over the water a little bit, land in bounds, doesn't need the birdie, just needs the par. She skies it on hyzer, OB. Kristen takes a par, takes another stroke. We are now within 1. We move to the 18th. Hole 18, 470 feet. You can either go over the pond, water's up kind of on the edge, and you can go for eagle. It is a par 4. Or the normal play is to lay up short to the left of the pond and then go across with your second. It's probably about 225 feet across the water after your layup. So a pretty simple shot for these top players. Kristen goes first. She's down by 1. She actually hits the perfect layup. I didn't see enough people talking about this, but it was the perfect layup. The landing zone, it kind of has the hill down to it and then a flat zone and then the pond. You really want to land on that flat part so you don't have any weird footing or anything like that. Kristen executes it perfectly, puts herself in a great spot to get up and down for birdie. And Ella now just has to match. Ella needs to match Kristen this hole and she wins. So she gets up to the tee and it looks like she has a distance driver in her hand, which means she is not laying up. She is going for it. She steps up. I was expecting her to just hammer something on a little bit of hyzer, let it flip up to flat. Ella has plenty of distance to get across the water, and then she'd be able to just chip up for birdie and win the tournament. What she instead did was she hammered in more understable disc flat. It rips over. It is a full flight shot, and she goes OB long behind the landing zone. So now you're thinking, okay, well, Ella can still get up and down, and worst case, she goes to a playoff. So Kristen hits her approach shot. Kristen puts it to 30 feet, massive crosswind, water right behind the basket putt, a lot of pressure. Ella just has to stick a 200-foot approach shot close, probably even less than that, or 180, just has to stick it close. And she goes to the backhand, and she very early and low out of her hand, not a good shot, puts herself to 45 feet. She tries the little step putt and puts it low right, and Kristen makes the 30-footer with massive wind, OB staring her in the eyes right behind the basket for the win. And Ella was clearly heartbroken by it. I mean, you blew a 4-stroke lead in the last 3 holes, letting Kristen just snatch away a win like that. So we will talk about the decision making later, but right now just going to go through some of the stats that were important. Kristen, on paper, Kristen was the best player at this tournament by far. She was first in C1 in regulation, first in C2 in regulation, 5th in fairway hits, 4th in parked percentage, 2nd in C1X putting. The only thing that killed her were those 2 triple bogeys in round 2. And she had a double in round 3. She bogeyed the very easy hole 2. couple of big mistakes. She had more bogey strokes than Ella going into those last couple holes. Ella was looking a lot cleaner. But overall, Kristen on paper was the best player at this tournament. Kristen looked a little bit rusty. It has been the off season, but a rusty Kristen Tatar is still probably the best FPO player. Ella Hansen, she wasn't flashy. She was just really consistent this weekend. She was third in C1 in regulation. She was fourth in parked percentage. She was second in birdies, but she just couldn't put together a full round. So if we go back and we look at her rounds, round 1, she started killer, 5 down through 5, looking unstoppable. Ended up shooting 2 down the rest of the holes. Not a bad round, but if you look at it, you really probably want more from that if you're 5 down through 5. Round 2, she started really, really poorly, honestly. She was 2 over through 5, pulled it together, ended up shooting 3 down. And then round 3, of course, started out 4 down through 4. She was 5 down through the front 9, 6 down through 10, and then ended up shooting only 3 down with bogeying the last 3 holes. She just never was able to put together 2 9 holes together to make a full 18 really solidly. Just either starting poorly or ending poorly. She just couldn't put it all together, which is a really big bummer for a very talented player in Ella Hansen. And then, of course, the issue on 18. Third place was Owen Scoggins at 10 down. She actually putted very poorly this weekend. She lost strokes putting, but she was third in strokes gained tee to green, and she just did her thing. Great scramble percentage, and overall solid weekend from Owen. Another podium finish for her. Congrats to Owen. So some of the storylines, of course, were the decision making. Now, I've seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, well." A lot of people were mad that KJ played it safe and now Ella played, or that KJ didn't play aggressive. Now Ella plays aggressive and you're mad. These are very different situations. KJ went safe after he saw Calvin go aggressive. Ella went aggressive after seeing Kristen go safe. Those are opposite situations there. They were both played poorly. They were the example of I think the wrong thing to do. I know I'm not in that situation, and Ella had a game plan going into it. But I think when you see Kristen lay up, you have basically said, I need to hit 2 200-foot shots or 230-foot shots to win a tournament. And you're a professional FPO player, one of the, a top 5 or top 10 player. You have to be able to hit 2 225-foot, 230-foot shots back to back. If you have that to win a tournament, I would take that to win a tournament. That sounds relatively advantageous to me. And if you're Ella Hansen, I know your game and your shtick is power, and that's your advantage over the field. But when you have such a risky hole like 18, and you have nerves and everything like that, taking 2 simpler shots, I think, is best. Now, we have hindsight, of course. It is hard to say in the moment, but I questioned it the second I saw her pull out the driver. I was shocked at what she was doing. I saw some people saying, and Hunter mentioned this on Foundation, that she didn't practice the layup. I don't believe that, and if she didn't, that is shocking decision making. But you are a professional player. You are going to be in situations like this in the future. You have to be able to execute different kinds of shots for the win. Now, if Kristen had parked it for eagle, right? And then you say, all right, let's go. I want to win this. And then you go big. That is when you are making the smart decision and you have that bet or that shot in your arsenal. Kristen did not do that. You just had to match Kristen. The layup, if you say, all right, well, I'm nervous about the second layup, I'm going to disc up a little bit. Worst case scenario, you go 50 long, you lay up, you're in a playoff. I'm sorry, but you got to look at the different results and the average score you're going to take there. And I don't see a reasonable way where you can go distance driver and go across on that last shot. That's just me, but obviously I have the hindsight and I was not there. But I think everyone is kind of questioning her right now, and I think rightfully so. It was a bad decision, and she'll learn from it, I bet. But in that moment, you just cannot make that mistake. No McBeast in the final round. We saw Macbeth on chase card, Adam Ham is on lead card, I saw a bunch of memes about like objects in Mirror are closer than they appear, and it was Macbeth. And I was expecting a Macbeth McBeast kind of final round from the chase card, and we didn't see that, which is a bummer because he's won this event before. But he ended up finishing outside the top 10, which is not what I was expecting at all. I guess he just wasn't able to turn it on. He had a lot of struggles on the final 3 holes, and just wasn't able to really make it click that last round and really make a push for the win. So just the MPO top 5 as a whole really struggled. We had Macbeth finishing outside the top 10, Chris Dickerson outside the top 20, Eagle McMahon outside the top 30, and Gannon Burr outside the top 20 as well. The only one that was able to survive this curse was Mr. Calvin Heimburg, finishing, of course, in 3rd place. I don't know what's going on right now. Eagles had, he had a really rough final round. So not impressed so far from the top 5 outside of Mr. Calvin Heimburg, because I would expect each of them to at least have, like, none of those guys other than Calvin have a podium yet. None of those guys podiumed in the first 2 events, which is like, how's that going to happen? You're Eagle or you're Gannon. You're playing at an open course. Macbeth plays well at any course. You would expect to see at least a podium out of one of those guys 2 events in. So another cool thing on the opposite side of the spectrum was James Proctor. I've heard the name James Proctor a lot. I am from Northwestern Washington, and he was a killer up there for so long. He's really high rated, but he's never really been on the full tour, and we are finally starting to see the best of him. I don't think he's going to be like a top 5 player, top 10 player, but I think he can cement himself as a solid, like, top 15, flashes into the top 10 a little bit kind of player. And I think the most impressive thing was he was on lead card at Vegas, met open golf course, big bomber shots. He has a really big arm. And then he goes to Waco and he does the same thing on lead card. He's showing that he has a well-rounded game. And now that he's going to be on tour full-time, if he competes and if he goes out and like wins a Silver Series or wins an event, I wouldn't be shocked. He's a great player. So good to see James Proctor with a strong start. We love to see that. Hopefully he doesn't have the Luke Humphreys curse. Last year we saw Luke Humphreys finish great in the top first 2 events and then fall off. I do have a little bit more faith. James Proctor is a more seasoned player. He has a higher rating. I think he's more set to continue his success throughout the season. But it will be interesting to watch out for what he does the rest of the year. Calvin, the early points leader. So I mentioned how he is the only one inside that kind of top 5 that's really started the year well. And I would not be shocked if Calvin kind of just ran away with the points this year. Like, he showed he can do it on the open course. We all knew that. He just went to a course he's uncomfortable with and put up a fantastic performance with the top 3. And we are headed to Texas State, or not Texas State, the Open at Austin. This next week. He said he's looking and probably going to be a little more comfortable there. And then we head to some courses that he's really, really strong at. We're going to head toward Champions Cup here soon and Jonesboro, and we're going to get into those stretches where he plays really well. And if he's already kind of at this spot, I think the field should be really nervous, because if we get to July and Calvin has already won 3 events, I wouldn't be surprised, actually. I would not be shocked. Because he's just looking that smooth and strong. His forehand is clearly better. His putting, I've seen a lot of adjustments on the putting green where he's been able to change the nose angle or the speed, putt really well into the wind. Like, he kept it. He went forward on 15 every round. He went distance driver, and he kept it inbounds all 3 rounds. He just looks so good right now. Again, that mid-range game has been great. The putter game has been great. The finesse has been great. Like, the decision making has been really solid. Like, Calvin Heimburg this year could be our player of the year, early points leader, or eventual points leader, and look out for Calvin. 2 other guys who had really strong starts were Kevin and Kyle. Kevin has top 10s at both events now. Nice job to Kevin. We saw him last year I think, underperform a little bit. So if this has any kind of indication on what we're going to see, I think we can be excited for Kevin's year. And then Kyle, strong start. He got fourth at Vegas. He got first at Waco. The only one who started kind of up there with Calvin. So good for Kyle. Again, he had a bit of a bad start to last year and then really turned it on mid-season. So now that he started strong, really look to see a good season out of him. On the FPO side, we've had Ella, Owen, and Haley King with really strong starts to the year. I really do want to highlight Haley King because she's someone that we've known has all the talent in the world, but has had trouble putting it together consistently, and she had a great start to the year with 2 top 10s. So good job to Haley King. Really happy to see that, and hopefully she can continue throughout the year. Ella and Owen. Ella is an up-and-coming player. She's very new to the sport. I'm not shocked to see this out of her. She will win an event eventually. It's just a matter of kind of breaking through. And then Owen, we know about Owen. She's fantastically talented on the putting green, upshot game. Apparently her scramble game is great, and you'd look to see more podiums out of Owen. I would love to see a win. I don't think it will happen, but Owen, keep chugging along on the podiums. Maybe you'll get one day. Another storyline out of this event was Paige Pierce struggling early. I picked her. I felt a little bit pressured to pick her in my top 3. Last week I didn't, or 2 weeks ago, I did not pick Katrina Allen. And so I was thinking, oh shoot, like, I don't know if I can not pick Katrina Allen, and then Paige is back and not pick Paige. So I was like, I'll pick Paige. I initially had it written in one of my bold predictions, Paige finishes outside the top 10, and that would have looked great, but she just wasn't on it. She ended up shooting even par for the tournament. Just not a good showing from Paige Pierce. She got 16th. She was 14 strokes back of the leader. Just really couldn't break through. We saw too many bogey strokes from her. Just not good. Not a good event from Paige. And then last one, actually, this last one I'll save for a little bit later. So I am going to do something new. We're going to call it early season overreactions. And these are some takes that are based on very small sample size and anecdotal data, but going to make some kind of not prediction, just overreactions. So I said Calvin Heimburg win player of the year. I explained that a little bit. He's off to a flying start, and right now he looks a little bit untouchable. So Calvin Heimburg, player of the year. You heard it here first. Maybe not. Eagle McMahon won't win an event. This is a surprising take, but I think we have seen the lack of a forehand hurt him more than, like, I knew it was going to hurt his chances to win, but we saw that European Open showing. I thought maybe he could dialed in and put up some really good performances. So far we haven't seen that. Eagle McMahon, he's not going to win an event this year. You heard it here first. You can clip it. You get a nice soundbite from it. Eagle McMahon won't win an event. Paige Pierce is going to finish outside the top 3 in points. This is a big overreaction considering we only have one event from Paige so far. But if you look at the combination of last year and this year, it's not as outlandish as it sounds. I wouldn't be shocked if she dropped some events in the future. She said she's lost that competitive edge. So if, like, I don't know, Ella Hansen, if Krishna Tatar, Katrina Allen, Valmanda Hano, Missy Gannon, those people, if they finished ahead of her in points, I wouldn't be surprised. Haley King. So there are a number of players that could finish ahead of her, and I think a few of those players are going to put it together. So Paige Pierce outside the top 3 in points this year. You heard it here first. And then I said last but not least, we are going to see a record number of playoffs this year. That is very anecdotal, but we have seen 2 extremely exciting events really come down to the wire. And the field is so deep right now that I think it's hard to say. There's going to be a lot of separation this year. So we're going to see a record number of playoffs. I'm not sure what the record number of playoffs will be, but whatever it is, it's going to be smashed this year. So record number of playoffs this year in DGPT events. So looking at my predictions from the Waco preview show, I had some... They were okay. They were solid. They weren't fantastic, but they were okay. So number 1, I said Prodigy was going to dominate. They had some good finishers. They didn't end up dominating. they were solid, but not great. Isaac Robinson had a disappointing event. I'll get to that in a second. Kale finishes in the top 10. He did. I said Kale or Bradley would finish in the top 10, and Kale clutched up. He had a great event. Good showing from Kale. I said Luke Humphreys would show out again. He played solid. He got a top 20. I think that's good for Luke Humphreys. That's above his average, I think. So not a great prediction, not horrible, kind of middle ground. And the last one I'm most proud of, I said Anakin Sten. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. But Anakin Sten was going to show up, and she did. She was in the top 10. She looked fantastic, tearing this course up as a lefty. I'm really excited to continue to see her. I think her rating is lower than it should be. I don't know what happened there, but she is clearly a very talented player, and she got the top 10 to secure me that nice prediction. Looking at my top 3, did not hit well. I did have Ricky. He did drop out. So a rough event overall. The only one I got right was Kristen winning, which she did. So good for me there. Jeremy Cooling was an okay dark horse pick, but it didn't end up doing that great. So kind of a mixed bag, but for predictions and some bold predictions, I actually don't hate it. If I'm like 50% on bold predictions, I think that's pretty good. I'll take it. Let me know if you guys like that, or if there's anything else you want to see from my prediction side. So last but not least, we have a power rankings update. And I threw caution to the wind this one. I'm tired of players not playing events. I'm tired of players not playing events and then showing up and doing poorly in the next event. So I made some moves this week. So on the MPO side, moving to the number 1 spot, we got Mr. Calvin Heimburg. Paul had a bad finish. Ricky wasn't there. Gannon had a bad finish. There's no way I can put Calvin anywhere but 1 and feel good about it. These are power rankings. These are not like how good I think the player is. These are purely based on events, or recent events. And I just got to put Calvin up there because who else is number 1 in the world right now? You know, we haven't seen Ricky yet. Paul has had not great finishes. Gannon, bad finishes. Like Eagle, bad finishes. Like no one else it feels like they all hot potato don't want the number 1 spot in the world. So fair enough. I'll give it to Calvin. He wants it. Number 2 though, I do have Ricky. Again, Paul, Gannon, Eagle have had bad finishes, and Ricky I just think is the most talented right now of the bunch on the Pro Tour. So he's gonna get the the best of the rest, I guess. Second place still not bad, but he could start dropping if Paul Macbeth, Gannon, or Eagle put up some better finishes. Number 3, Paul. Number 4, Gannon. Just explain that a little bit. They've both been disappointing, but you could really interchange all of them. They've had not good starts to the season. 5, moving up, we have Mr. Kyle Klein. He went 4th at Vegas. He went 1st at Waco. He has been fantastic to start the year. Really excited to see more of him. Let's see if he can continue it. No Luke Humphreys weirdness this year. Just a great year from Kyle Klein. That's what we're hoping for. Number 6, Eagle McMahon. Disappointing finishes. I could see Eagle dropping even more. Right now I'm going to keep him at 6. We didn't see him a lot at the end, or we didn't see him a lot last year. He's not done great this year. It's hard to put him higher than that. So I think pending a very good finish from Eagle, he is going to stay at 6 maximum. Like I wouldn't be shocked if he moved down farther. Number 7, Matty O. He's done what he does. He had a solid top 10 at Waco, ended up getting 7th. Eternally in the top 10, never a winner. That's how Matty O is. So good job to Matty O, but when are you going to get that win? When are you going to get it, Matty O? Come on, man. Number 8, Kevin Jones. He has also had a flying start to the year, 2 top 10s to speak of, and just a really nice thing to see. You know, he had a rough year last year a little bit, so good to see Kevin kind of back up, competing for wins. I've seen some posts from him. It seems like he's psyched about it, so good for Kevin. Number 9, Simon Lizotte. He was not at Waco, didn't impress at Vegas. Hard to keep him higher than that. I wouldn't be shocked if he moved out of the top 10 here soon. And a guy who arguably should move out of the top 10 is Chris Dickerson. I could probably throw Joel Freeman there. There are a couple guys I could probably put there if I really wanted to. I think if Isaac Robinson had a better finish, he could compete for that spot. I think Corey Ellis could compete for that spot. A lot of guys could compete for that spot, but Chris Dickerson, we're going to keep him there. He's very talented, but not seen good things from him lately. Again, he was outside of the top 20. Not what you want to see on a technical woods course. You expect Chris Dickerson to be up there. Did not see him all weekend. On the FPO side, we have my top 5. I might consider bumping this up to a top 10 because it is getting difficult. So number 1, we got Kristen Tatar. Number 2, we got Katrina Allen. Katrina had I think she was 10th place at Waco. Not great, not horrendous, but I don't think there's anyone who's knocking her off, especially after her win in Vegas. So 2 top 10s to start. Nothing wrong with that in an ever more competitive FPO field. Number 3, Missy Gannon. She was not very good this weekend, but she had the top 3 at Vegas. She's going to stay at number 3. She's a great player. The reason she's going to stay there is because I don't think Henna can pass her. If Henna had a good Waco, I think Henna would have overtaken her, but we're going to keep Henna at 4. Henna, again, had a very solid showing at Vegas. Poor performance at Waco. And moving into the top 5, we have Ella Hansen. Great finish at Vegas, great finish at Waco. Nice start to the season, a very kind of Kevin Jones-esque start to the season. So look for her to be on the rise. I think one more good event from Ella, and she'll probably jump Missy and Henna if Missy and Henna don't show up again. And who knows, Ella could go out and win the Open at Austin. Like, that wouldn't shock me. So look for her to move up. I think I will expand this list because there were so many I want to throw in there. Own, Paige, a lot of players who I think deserve to kind of be in that conversation. And with that ever-growing FPO field, I think we could probably expand it. So look for the next power rankings. We'll include 10 in the FPO field. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Sprechen Disc Golf. As always, go like and subscribe, comment if you want to see anything else. Sorry about the little cut. We had some difficulties there, got something in my eye, but we're good now. Thank you for checking us out. Check out our home platform, sprechensports.com. You can join a live event and chat with other people watching the same event as you. We will have the Open at Austin up there, so go check that out. Go check out our Twitter and Instagram. Links are in the description. Have a good rest of your day, and I will see you on the next episode of Sprechen Disc Golf.